Okay, there we go. Cool. Yeah, this will be completely different from all the other talks. If you don't like it, blame him. I'm going to zoom out and talk about the rate of progress in the field as a whole, and what I think are some of the biggest levers that we can target to change that rate. So longevity grand strategy, what does that mean? Am I just trying to sound cool? Grand strategy in sort of geopolitics means looking at all the tools of a nation, including both military and civilian, and trying to align those in order to achieve a certain goal. And so for longevity, the way I think about this is there is a whole ecosystem. There's mitochondria and telomeres, et cetera. But those are not solutions. Those are sort of scientific challenges. What is needed in order to have solutions to longevity actually reach people, and what are the factors that we aren't thinking as much about? So how is it going in terms of life extension? We're getting about a year a decade, or 0.1 year per year of life extension, and that is true even if you are already old. So it's not all from sort of childhood mortality. These graphs are from Our World in Data. So that's good. We are living longer than we were 10 years ago. We're living longer than we were 100 years ago. However, I think most people in the audience here would like to see that number go above 1. And so what's limiting us? Well, where's all this progress coming from? It's coming from about $250 billion invested in biomedical research in the US, and maybe 50% or 100% on top for global numbers. And almost none of that, as you saw already, is aging research. So what this means is that we are actually improving health, even though we largely don't care about aging at all. We are doing a lot of things to target specific diseases, et cetera. You're all very familiar, and that is improving our health. Then we're doing a little bit to understand aging R&D, and then we're doing an even smaller bit to sort of do any kind of radical life extension or therapies that might have a huge effect. So I think the important takeaway here, though, is that apparently we don't need the bottom part in order to make progress. And also, the bottom part is contributing nothing currently. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't potential in the bottom part, and I think personally there is, and we should pursue that, right, with more money than we currently are. But it also means that there is this whole system where most of the money goes, for different reasons, that is producing some rate of progress, and it may be possible for us to increase that rate of progress, and it may also be sensible for us to try to put aging research into that system, or at least understand where it does and does not fit. So I'm going to talk next about the system. That sounds ominous. Which is basically that, and I have a rope here because I like ropes, and also, you know, I got a knot on my Gordian t-shirt, and the Norns are making ropes, so there's a rope here. The bottom of the rope is not yet tied together. These are the strands of basic research, so a lot of the other stuff we're hearing about, which is producing some number of ideas, and then some of those ideas are good. And the ideas have different sort of potential impact on human health. And an idea here might be, you know, reason talking about maybe we shouldn't have as much intracellular cholesterol, et cetera. And they have a different potential impact on human health. And the ones I think most of us here think, well, if we target the root causes of aging, that would have a much bigger impact. So those are like really strong ideas, and we should have more of those. Then the next thing that happens is that you start a company, or, you know, it gets adopted somehow into the drug development industry that tries to take the idea and turn it into something we can actually do, an intervention, a perturbation that you could potentially give to people. What happens here? Like most of the ideas, they don't go here, and most of the ones that go here don't go any further. And so there's a step here where there's relatively large investments, you know, tens of millions of dollars. It takes years, and that's only done for certain things. And then we succeed for certain things. And then we end up in clinical trials, and they're even more expensive, obviously. And we need to do that in order to know whether something will actually work in people. And this is really basic, but it's also really important. Like we have a bunch, Mehdi talked about, biomarkers and clocks and so forth. Like we basically don't know if any of these work yet. Strong statements. The other thing is that you've invested a lot of time and money here. And so there's not a lot of risk taking at this step. If we want more new things to get into, like get to this step, then we need to make it appear probable that they will succeed at that step. So I'm going to go through each of these steps and propose sort of where could we, as the aging field, focus in order to have higher throughput at that step. And I'm going to suggest that we basically can think about our overall progress per year, and don't get caught up on like the very specifics of the formula, but the point is that like each year we have a certain number of ideas that were proposed within a certain lag period, which is at least 15 years, right? If we do something awesome right now and we got to go through trials and everything and make drugs, it's going to take us 15 years. So in the past 15 years, if we integrate over that, what ideas have we had? What's the possible impact of those ideas in terms of qualities, right? So quality adjusted life years. And how likely are they to succeed, and how likely are we to actually put them forward? The sum of this is giving us 0.1 years per year, and we want that number to go up. So at the research stage, there's a whole bunch of factors. How many talented people are working? How much money do they have? Can they do a CRISPR screen? Can they use AI to run through a lot of perturbations? All of this stuff, I'm not going to talk about the details of all of this stuff, but like it has a complex relationship. The sum of it is how many strong hypotheses for human impact are we generating per year? And it's really hard to track this, right? So if you ask me, how many is it? Is it 7? I don't think it's 70. Maybe it's 7. Depends on how you define a good hypothesis, and that's hard to know in advance. But we have some sense of it, right? Like how many papers did you really care about this year? There's different ways we could try to track it. If we make this number go up, then we have more shots on goal, and we might be able to make more drugs. Conversely, if we don't make this number go up, then we could invest like $1 trillion in drug development, and all we would get is like 100 or 1,000 different reprogramming drugs, and one of them will be a bit better than the other one, right? So this is really important. We have to keep funding this like wellspring in the beginning. Then some of those things are going to move forward. I have a formula again down here. Can I do this? I can kind of do this, but I'll call out some things. The point is there's a predictive validity term here. Predictive validity means if during translation I think that this thing is going to work in trials, how often am I right? And there's lots of factors that come in here. How good are your preclinical models? How good a thinker are you? How good are your assays? That's really important. If you just run clinical trials on random stuff, you will fail all of the time, and we will get nothing. Then there's how many of my hypotheses can I actually advance? And how many of the things just stop there because we don't have a path forward? And then, of course, time and money. The more time and money it takes us to do this, the less progress we get. For aging, clearly for anything, the biggest bottleneck is this predictive validity. If you don't know what's going to work, you're just going to fail all the time. But for aging, it's extra important, right? Because most people think that this will not work, and therefore there's no additional funding, right? If we can demonstrate convincingly that we can actually predict what happens in trials, for example, via biomarkers, then we can increase the success rates, but also the funding. Another issue is that a lot of aging hypotheses don't have a good path forward for different reasons. One is, okay, I have my whole body, knockout mouse, it lives longer. Well, we can't do a drug that targets in every cell of your body the right amount of inhibiting this transcription factor. Like that's just an undruggable problem. And so many of the studies that happen don't have a translational path using the current tools. There are just different things you can do there, right? We could focus on things that could be drugs. We could focus on making better tools for like delivering gene therapies and so forth. The other problem is that a lot of it is preventative. And I think this one is much more actionable. If we want to prevent diseases in the future by targeting aging biology, we need a way for preventative medicine to be reimbursable. If no one will pay for it, then no one will invest in running the clinical trials and so forth, right? And there's things you can do here as well. You can make surrogate endpoints for clinical trials. That's a whole chapter that I won't get into details with here, but it's really important, and you heard about that. And then finally, how much confidence is there in the field? If we can make the top numbers go up, if we can demonstrate success, then we will have more budget to work with. Right now, there's some number, a couple $100 million per year invested in the field overall. Some fraction of that is for actually making drugs, small fraction. But if we demonstrate good predictability, for example, by having really validated biomarkers, then our confidence goes up. Then we get to the clinic. In the clinic, I would say that our rate of, if we just sum the whole thing up, right, the rate of improving life expectancy is how many healthy years are we adding? Are the trials that attempt to add them working? Are they overlapping? Are they all doing the same thing? Or are they making really new approaches? And then we have constraints on that in time and cost. Currently, more than half of drugs approved in the US, a bit more than half, are for rare diseases. So definitionally, those diseases impact fewer than 200,000 patients. As you can imagine, that is not yielding the highest possible number of qualities, right? And I think our thesis here is that we could find these drugs that impact more people and add more years of life. How do we get to the point where those drugs are working so that we can increase the number of sort of qualities per year? We need a lot of money. So right now, what goes into clinical trials and even what goes into translation is subject to what do people think will work, right? Like what do we think we have a path for? And so we need to make that, we need to add, convincing data, as I mentioned earlier, that there actually is a path. And the problem for adding convincing data is that we don't have the money to do the trials. So we have a circular issue here, right? However, what we could do, again, is develop biomarkers that let us run trials faster and cheaper. If you do that, then you have more shots on goal and you have more chances to get that breakthrough first longevity drug, the Ozempic of aging, what have you, that's going to unlock a lot more capital and allow us to do a lot more stuff. That's what I just said. So I think those are some of the high-level concerns at the clinical stage. If we sum that all up, then at the research stage, the thing that matters most, and so there's lots of things that matter, and we're building communities and all this stuff. But I think our key indicator of how well are we doing is how many good hypotheses are we generating per year, and our leading indicator is what's the rate of change of that. If you sum over the last 5 years, are we generating more hypotheses? That tells you whether our tools, our scientists, and so forth are getting better over time. At the translational stage, the big question is, are we advancing the right hypotheses? If that goes up, that's the biggest impact on the ultimate life expectancy per year. And our leading metric is, can we confidently assess what will work? And I think right now we are not very good at that at all. Our ability to predict this thing will have a big impact on human health is not good. And there's lots of things we could do in validating, our epigenetic clocks or whatever other predictors we have to show that they will work better. And then finally, at the clinical stage, how big is the human impact of the therapies that get approved, right? If we shift one therapy from a small rare disease drug to something that affects a large population like a statin, you're going to get 10, 20 million qualities per year. So that's the goal that we all have. And obviously, trying to make aging drugs is trying to address that goal. And I think the thing we can focus on here for the aging field is, can we demonstrate that if we run this trial, we have good odds of success? If we could show that an aging drug had a similar probability of success to just a cancer drug, anything in the 10% or above for a trial, then the money exists to make these things. But we have to show that. People don't believe that. So I think that's the end. That's where I'll end, and then you're welcome to ask questions around all this stuff. There's some, if you go to norn.group, there's some more write-ups on specific projects along these lines, but of course, everyone here and lots of other people are also doing initiatives. I think what I want to sort of leave you with is there are a lot of details. What is the thing that we need to connect all those details with and be cognizant of as we do our work? Thanks.
That was awesome.